Hi, this is our NYC Airbnb Tableau analysis. The New York Airbnb dataset is a sample dataset from Tableau public resources. And the data is originally from InsideAirbnb.com. As Inside Airbnb introduces, our dataset is sourced from publicly available information from the Airbnb site. And the data has been analyzed, cleaned, and aggregated to facilitate public discussion. We have selected the dataset of all Airbnb listings in New York as of August 31st, 2015. The dataset uses host ID as primary key to identify hosts and their Airbnb listings. The dataset also contains 12 other attributes: Airbnb name, categorical variables, including neighborhood, room type, and property type, date variable, including host since, and numerical variables, including zip code, rating, number of beds, number of reviews, number of records, and price. By looking at these variables, we provided the following 5 business analysis. We tried to perform our analysis and provided valuable business insight through 2 perspectives: renters who are about to stay in New York Airbnb and investors who want to invest in New York Airbnb.
For our first analysis, we examined how property type, location, and average prices of New York Airbnb listings are related. We chose to represent our findings with a table and a geographical map. The table clearly displays the numerical data and gives an overall look of how many housing types is present in each neighborhood. The neighborhood are in the rows and the housing types in the columns. The map visualizes the boundary with each neighborhood in different colors and shows the outline of each zip code in its map. It also displays the average price of the Airbnb in each area, showing itself to have the capacity to be utilized as a financial tool. The analysis reveals important information about Airbnb market. The data shows that neighborhoods with dense population, specifically Brooklyn and Manhattan, have more Airbnb markets than all other neighborhoods combined. These two have more properties listed, and they have the highest average prices out of all the neighborhoods. The map shows that the Airbnb that is located farther away from Manhattan is the cheaper the price of the Airbnb is. Versus Staten Island is the only neighborhood to not follow this trend, and Airbnb properties that price very similar to Manhattan. The map also shows Airbnb prices and partially determined by housing type, and most likely due to the different sizes associated with each one. The analysis reveals important information about Airbnb and its customers we can use to make informed decisions. Airbnb uses the geographical information to determine the property owners to target. For example, they may set their collection of listing of house property type to Manhattan is minimal and choose to only allow homeowners to join the platform. If Airbnb wants to attract a Pacific customer to stay in a Pacific neighborhood, they can increase the number of appropriate housing type in that location, creating more supply for the increased demand. House or apartment owners can also utilize a map to decide if they want to partner up with Airbnb. By looking at their current housing type, neighborhood, and the average price associated with the 2 dimensions, they can determine if it's economically feasible to list their property on the Airbnb market. The analysis offers itself as a wonderful, valuable tool for Airbnb and its users.
Hi, our next analysis is price versus neighborhood and room type analysis. We first want to observe the price differences between the different categories, such as location and Airbnb room types. The average price of entire room is significantly higher than other 2 room types, as you can see on the graph. Private room are slightly higher than the shared room, and to further understand why the Staten Island entire room is more expensive than Manhattan's entire room, we created another variable by using Tableau's variable calculation tool. The new variable is calculated as price over bed, and we added into the chart following by the previous categories. From the neighborhood perspective, Staten Island's price per bed is $79.6, which we can conclude that Airbnbs in Staten Island are usually larger in size and contains more bed. And notably, Manhattan's Airbnb have the highest average price for price per bed for $165.9 among all neighborhoods. And lastly, we create another side-by-side bar chart for standard deviation of price under different room type and neighborhoods. We can find that the standard deviation of private and shared rooms are generally small, which proves that the price distribution of these two rooms are relatively small. And in contrast, the price for entire room have large standard deviations, such as $667.3 for Staten Island, showing that the prices are very large dispersed from the average. Also, from the price per bed analysis, the difference between Queen's entire room and private room for one bed is $25.2. But in the full price analysis, the difference is $76.9. Such comparative analysis can provide a more detailed price analysis for customers who are traveling with one more person. For example, letting the customer know that the price difference is $30 per person, and instead of telling them they have to double the price for Airbnb, which allow the customer to have a more comprehensive perspective and choose based on their preferences. For investors, we can also give advices on future investments in Airbnb from the price standard deviation analysis. By looking at the bar chart, the price standard deviation of private room and shared rooms are generally small, which means it's suitable for investors who tend to be stable. And the entire room in Staten Island and also Bronx have a very large, very unstable environment, which we think there is a very big business opportunity in these fields, which is suitable for risk-oriented investors. Thank you.
In this analysis, we examined the average ratings of Airbnb listings in different neighborhoods and room types in New York City. We gathered this data from the Tablau's website and analyzed using Tableau software. To provide a more accurate representation of the quality of Airbnb listings, the analysis focused on reviews per year rather than overall ratings. We were able to achieve average reviews per year by dividing the number of reviews to the how long host attribute. And then we achieved how a host has been by subtracting the today's date by the attribute host since and dividing that value to 365 days. This gives us the total days a person has been host. The results showed that private rooms generally had higher ratings than shared rooms, and that Staten Island had the highest rating of private rooms. This high rating suggests that customers who stayed in private rooms in Staten Island were more satisfied than those who stayed in private rooms in Manhattan. This could be due to the high demand and high cost of Manhattan, which may lead customers to have higher expectations with more money they are spending and leave lower ratings when those expectations are not met. These insights are actionable for both customers and investors. For customers, the analysis offers information about which neighborhoods and room types have high ratings, allowing them to stay in those areas that are likely to offer a positive experience. And for investors, by investing in neighborhoods and room types with high ratings, investors can increase the return on their investments with more satisfied customers, leaving a better rating, which will result those places to have more customers because of those high ratings. Other than that, strategically, a market price analysis could be made with the ratings we see here. Depending on the ratings, the price could be just set to the right spot so people will feel like getting their money's worth, and more satisfied customers will leave higher ratings. Ratings and feedback are the most important driver of a property's popularity, and focusing on achieving higher ratings will result in an increased popularity of a property. And lastly, this analysis provides valuable insights for both renters and investors looking to make the most out of the Airbnb platform. By providing information about the quality of Airbnb listings in different neighborhoods and room types, the analysis helps users make more informed decisions when using the platform and offers businesses the information they need to optimize their investments and marketing efforts.
Next, we'll be presenting the findings focusing on the relationships between name length and the average number of reviews per neighborhood. By analyzing the standard deviation of Airbnb name length for each neighborhood, we were able to identify the diversity of naming conventions used by the host. As shown in the neighborhoods and standard deviation of name length analysis, which is at the top analysis, we use Tableau to calculate the length of each name using the formula coded, which is equals LEN parentheses name, where name is the cell containing the Airbnb names. We can then calculate the standard deviation of Airbnb name length for each neighborhood using the standard deviation function. Neighborhoods with higher standard deviations indicate a more diverse range of naming conventions, while lower standard deviations suggest a more standardized approach to naming. Airbnb hosts can use this information to optimize their naming conventions based on the neighborhood they are in, ultimately improving their Airbnb listings and attracting more guests. Next, we use the information from a bottom table to determine how we got the data analysis in sheet 1, which is the vertical bar chart. The bar chart has 2 columns of neighborhoods and 3 categories of ranges, which is less than 20, 20 to 40, and more than 40. We got the name length category through a calculation that can be found here. And as seen here, this if statement is pretty much how we receive the code of the name length category. We found that there's a correlation between name length and the average number of reviews per neighborhood. Hosts can consider giving their listings longer names to potentially increase the number of reviews received. Additionally, for hosts with listings in neighborhoods with lower average number of reviews, improving the length of their listings may attract more guests and increase the number of reviews. The bottom analysis shows that too many words, however, as I go back to the dashboard, the bottom analysis, which is the average number of views versus the name length category, shows that improving the length will attract more guests and increase the number of views, with Manhattan being the only one over 40. For investors, this shows that too many words, however, can lead to very low reviews, with 6.5 being the least with Manhattan. For investors, the data can be used to identify high growth neighborhoods with longer name lengths and higher average number of reviews may indicate that the area is becoming more popular and desirable, and therefore present investment opportunities. On the other hand, low average numbers of reviews may indicate issues with the neighborhoods. For renters, this analysis can help in making informed decisions on the type of neighborhood they want to live in. Renters can use this information to negotiate rental rates and find the best value for the accommodation needs. They can also use this information to determine the type of neighborhood they want to live in based on the level of engagement and activity, with neighborhoods with longer name lengths and higher average number of reviews being potential indicators of this. Overall, this analysis provides valuable insights for all parties involved in the Airbnb listings in New York and can be used to make informed decisions based on the number of reviews and the name lengths.
For our last analysis, we wanted to see if there was a relationship between the number of beds and the number of reviews. To do this, we made a scatter plot with the number of beds as the independent variable and distinct count of reviews as the dependent variable. We also used the count distinct as a measure instead of count, because count distinct measures every individual value and it helps scale the graph better. Once this was done, we could clearly see that there was a negative relationship between beds and number of reviews. We then wanted to take it a step further and see if this trend persisted with the number of years since this home has been posted, and if this trend exists in every neighborhood in New York. We did this with 2 additional graphs, with years added as a dimension and also with neighborhoods added in the other graph as an attribute. We then color coded each one just so it would be easier to see which color corresponds to which neighborhood and which year. And once we did this, we could see that regardless of years and neighborhood, the same trend has persisted. Up until 2011, total reviews for each neighborhood is always higher for having 1 to 4 beds. However, the number of reviews then slowly decreased after 2012, perhaps because homes were renovated more and were more modern and therefore more expensive. There were some outliers in these graphs, such as when there were 0 beds and when there were 15 in some cases, or 16. This is probably because sometimes students or partygoers just want to rent a big space for an event and don't really require any beds. And the 15-bed rentals are probably for very large groups or very rich people who sometimes are in New York for whatever reason and need a large place to stay. This is probably a very rare event just because of how expensive the prices must be. As the number of beds in a rental space increased, we can clearly see the number of reviews decreased, implying that the more beds in a rental space, the less popular it was to customers. With this intelligence from Tableau, renters and investors can probably spend money in these rental areas where they know they should focus on spaces with 1 to 4 beds before 2012, as they're the most in demand and most reviewed in all the neighborhoods. If these investors choose to pick the area solely based on the bulk of reviews, then they should invest in Manhattan and Brooklyn areas. Since they have more reviews and are more populated, so they would naturally will have more housing. Finally, this data has its own set of limitations since this is public business data. If we could get more detailed housing data, such as occupancy records and room sizes, we believe we could achieve a more comprehensive analysis of Airbnb in NYC to provide better business insights. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for listening.